There is a certain agenda nowadays that promotes a lot of hatred within people, especially of minorities towards the majority. See, these woke agendas seem to follow nothing else but the expansionist plan of communists, or well, let's call them Bolsheviks, the one behind the woke agenda, and many others as well. See, if you want to crumble a nation or a set of nations, invade them with all sorts of people, or infiltrate them with all sorts of people that will create minorities, and then create organizations that will make those minorities feel that they are entitled to do anything they want, that they have powers against those who live in their own countries and who have been living there for a long time, thousands of years maybe, and make them think that now that they are minorities in there, they are protected, and the majority is not allowed to do anything, right? You can see this rising everywhere in Western Europe, I may say. And the European Union, obviously, the rulership is well beyond that, right? It is perfectly hidden there. They have been programming Europeans to accept people from poorer countries because it was, a humanitarian deed. But they were never telling you that those people were going to be used against you to create destabilization. Because those people come from places where your ancestors, yes, European ancestors, have gone to and have caused a lot of havoc. And now these people are being taught that they are doing justice to their ancestors by causing havoc to you right now. See, if their ancestors would have done that to us at those times, they wouldn't have been in any way, shape, or different because those were the times. Ancestors, well, they lived their own times and they did the best they could with the level of awareness that they had. You never do justice in the past. Justice can only be done in the present, when those people deserve it. When those people pass away and justice hasn't been done, it won't service them in any way, shape, or form. But to a certain extent, it may help those who actually still live, those alive. If you want justice for the people who have suffered because of wars, of empires, and the such, you only do one single way, right? There is only one single way to do justice. You do education. You teach people that whatever has happened in the past has happened, and no one in the present day is or should ever be allowed to do things to others just because some people in the past did. Black slavery existed. Yes, slavery existed ever since we existed as a slave, right? As a slaves of our own ego. We have always been slaves of our egos. So, sooner or later, you end up with all sorts of expectations. But worse than that, you end up with all sorts of entitlements. When entitlements become stronger and stronger, having slaves to do your bidding is gonna be something that will feel more and more pulsing, more and more of a necessity, and then of an urge, right? So, slavery has always existed. When we look at black slavery, obviously it is a small chapter compared to, well, the chapter of slavery throughout our entire existence as humans. But it also cannot be denied. It existed, so therefore it cannot be denied. There are all sorts of pieces of evidence and such. Now that a lot of things have been done based on that, like the invention of the so-called human races by Blumenbach in the 18th century to keep promoting this idea of black slavery, right? It was even in the American military. It was portrayed even in the movie Red Tails. That's how the movie actually starts, right? By showing that black people were mistreated and they were treated as inferior, right? That movie has the purpose to remind people of the mistakes of the past. But the problem is, it is a movie related to war, and still a lot of humans are stupid enough to believe in this nonsensical aspect of human races. There is only a human race, and that's it. Every other difference that you can see, skin color specifically, well, that is more a result of geographical parameters. Obviously, people living towards the equatorial areas will have darker skin tones because it's nothing else but an adaptation to the increasing quantity of light, right? And the body needs a darker skin tone in order to survive. When you look towards the north, well, white skin will prevail more, and well, people will be like that because of, again, cosmic and or geographical parameters. But when you look at stupidity, well, the stupidity behind Zionism and, well, Bolshevism, whatever you want to call it, is one single and that. It is that to create as much um, distortion within people's perception of reality, as much, how to put it, well, as much separation as possible, divide and conquer in the end, right? And now the current agendas you see, you're not allowed to say anything because, well, in the end, you're hurting someone's emotions. Nobody gives a fuck about your emotions in the end. But the most prevailing part is that you are not allowed to say things about others, while at the same time they are allowed to say about you. See, when you piss off the majority, they're making it a standard that you're not allowed to say anything about minorities because, they pay their taxes. They use all of these juicy arguments that they pay their taxes. They are citizens and the such. Nobody invited them as citizens. They were brought there forcefully by people who weren't even elected within the European Union. They simply brought people there so that they would destabilize the countries that were unfortunate enough to allow them to exist within them. Zionism has been around Europe for around 1,000 years, as per historic points of view, as well as some pieces of evidence, obviously, but they only call themselves Zionists like 200, 300 years ago. I think it's 200 years. It was in the middle 19th century or something like that in Germany, which was obviously the main country of their focus. And if we look at all these agendas, what is their only purpose? To create even more division between humans. Because look at that. Everywhere you see, there's technology which only enforces a certain thing: control. When people simply feel abandoned, exploit their abandonment by giving them distractions. Yes, it's been done so even hundreds, if not even thousands of years ago. Wasn't there let's say, a very important quote back in the past? If you want to rule the masses, give them bread and circuses, right? Because those were the easiest distractions back in the times. People knew this even back then, right? 1,000 years ago. And don't think times have been anyway different, maybe 2 or even 3,000 years ago, right? The more you live in ignorance, the more generations go through ignorance, it will be harder to pull yourself out until times do it in such a way that later and later generations will have to go through a certain set of challenges which will force them sooner or later to break out of those. All these agendas only have one single purpose. They give stupid people the idea that they are worshipped, that they are taken into account by a society, because they've always not only lived in abandonment, but they have also been birthed with a karma that stinks of abandonment. So they will end up feeling that it is their right to do harm to others just because other people have suffered and just because they also suffered. This is nothing else but an enforcing of narcissism, because narcissists are the epitome of suffering, and they will impose that everyone must also suffer as well. Why do you think they're telling you, well, everyone else also must suffer, and everyone also must do like this, and everyone else must also do like that? When you go to the supermarket, everything is marked with arrows, with directions and the such. It's like you're living in a prison world nonetheless, because narcissists are just prisoners of their own mind. So they wish to impose that upon the world as well. If you are unfortunate enough to welcome them into your life, well, they will make your whole life a hell. Well, with Zionists, it's not anything different. It is the same exact thing. It's just that they are still convinced that they have to rule over everyone else. That just because in some books 3,000 years ago, some people with a certain influence wrote that they are some kind of gods on this planet. Well, narcissists already think that they are gods on the planet, so obviously it only tickled their egos. See, all these agendas, they don't rule anything or anyone. It's just stupid people that follow those. They have to learn their lessons. But people who want to live a normal life also have to learn their lessons as well. All of these can only be bypassed through good, rigorous education. Education that reminds people what nature is, how you were born, and that you can pretend all your fucking life that you are this or you are that or you can do this just because of that. See, you only do justice to the past in your own imagination. The people who have lived their life, the people who have passed away, there is no justice to do to them anymore. Just because black people have suffered back in the past, there is unfortunately no justice that you can do for those. You can do justice for the people in the present by teaching them the idea of equality when it comes to living together as a society. A society that should only put a great accent on meritocracy. Because people, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their beliefs, irrespective of their provenience, they will be able or not to provide to a society. Those who can provide more will actually benefit more and should actually benefit more, opposed to those who simply suck and they don't do anything at all. But they still get to do something because, well, society kind of has programmed people to accept even the parasites. If people don't want to create anything, make life in such a way that they have to do something, not necessarily forcefully, but anyone should bring at least a bit of value to society, or at least to the generations that they will live after them. Yes? So all these agendas, they don't favor anyone. You are never favored by a narcissist. You are just the current target. Once they deal with you, once they eliminate you, they will move on to the next. What have they been doing throughout the ages? Well, Black Plagues are definitely a good proof that they have been doing nothing else than their own agenda. Killing of others because, well, that's how Zionism functions. If you don't kill others, your God will not love you, right? That's how Zionism functions. So why is it that they blame it on the rats? Because as per narcissists, it's never their fault. It's always something else at fault. Why were there no black plagues in Asia, for example? Or for the Amerindian populations? Or in Africa, right? Why were there plagues that would kill so many people in Europe? Because Europe was the unfortunate one that allowed these Zionists to exist among them. And just like moles, they will always dig their way in and they will always do their own nasty aspects. This is how narcissists function. Typically, they function solo, but they can also create great groups in which they serve their own agendas together and they cuddle their own egos one with the other. Because, well, in the end, it's all about cuddling their own egos. It's all about them feeling a bit of emotion from doing all sorts of nastiness, all sorts of aspects that, will make people live in a very distorted life, as far away as possible from the source, or whatever way you call it. I call it, well, the blueprint of your existence. How you were designed as a human to be, that is how you should be. A narcissist will teach you that you can be anything else. Narcissists are nothing else but prey to their own imagination. That is why you see all sorts of agendas nowadays telling you that you can imagine to be this and imagine to be that. It's all about exploiting the simple-minded. Keep the people stupid, illiterate, exterminate their elites, those who know, those who promote culture, those who promote literature, those who promote sciences. Once you eliminate those, you only leave the fools in a society, and then create as much of a distortion in their minds, as much of a separation in between them. And this is how you create a perfect stupid society with people that can easily be led to the slaughterhouse. Because in the end, this whole world is all about just some groups of people who think or still think that they are gods amongst mere mortals and that they have to exterminate everyone else at their whim because this is what they want. So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. Never forget, you are never favored by narcissists or a sick society. You are just their main target. And what are you a target for? Well, what can this sick society do you? Alright? It doesn't want you to be healthy. It doesn't want you to be alive. It doesn't want you to be free. It just gives you a perfect illusion for that. So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated. Take care. Enjoy life. And this being said, Ferencan Board signing out.